So why have you revealed yourself? Surely you aren't doing this to say hi now, are you? Shiro smirked while using wind to send Beryl, Trisha, and Quello away from their current location. Well, the initial plan was to kill you after the clown obtained the divinity, but seems like that plan was flawed. With how tired you are after reaching the boundary, I say it's a perfect chance to kill you. He narrowed his eyes as the muscles on his body started to twitch. Funny, I was about to say the same. Shiro grinned before dashing towards him with her spear and sword, twisting her body. She activated Nyx's divinity as darkness exploded out from her, blocking the ancient terror's sight along with dampening his magic so that he can't escape like last time. She distinctly remembered that his body was able to disperse into shadows much like what she can do now, activating her boundary. She could see the red glows on the ancient terror's body which symbolized his weaknesses, but she knew that some of them were fake, since he recognized her stamina problem with obtaining the boundary. That meant that he must understand how it worked, narrowing her eyes. She decided to test the waters for now by attacking all of the spots and seeing how he reacts. Flicking her wrist, countless sword slashes appeared around the monstrosity as he only grinned as allowed the attacks to land against him. Just as she did this, she sensed a spark of magic as she readied herself for his attack, but it was something unexpected. Pushi. Widening her eye, Shiro watched as the slashes appeared on her body instead of the monster. Jumping back, she furrowed her brows as one of her eyes had been damaged during that short exchange. What the hell? She thought to herself while blood poured down her face. Surprised? The last time I fought the one who had obtained the boundary, it was rather difficult since I could neither guard nor attack. In the time I have been awake, I've managed to find a way to counter people like you. So how is it? Does your eye hurt? The ancient terror laughed as Shiro only shrugged. I felt worse. The eye is nothing compared to what I had to go through. Shiro smirked. Interesting. Are people outside of this world like you as well? If so, I must see how well they stand up to pain. Not really. I'm quite an anomaly, even to the gods. Shiro smiled as she dashed towards him once more. When her attacks were reflected, she had sensed a spark of magic, so as long as she dampens the effects of his magic/nullify it, her attacks should go through. Seeing her charge and fearlessly despite the result last time, the ancient terror knew that something was up, so he raised his claws and swiped towards her, transforming her body into a collection of shadows. Shiro phased through his attack and appeared in front of his face, twisting her body. She stabbed her spear towards his head, sensing the flicker of magic once more. She activated Nyx's divinity, *ping. The sound of glass shattering could be heard as an invisible barrier around the ancient terror shattered apart the moment her spear stabbed into his head through the nose. With the petrification enchantment on her spear, a layer of petrification could be seen spreading all over his body as the ancient terror widened his eyes in shock, grabbing the spear. He wanted to pull it out of his head, but Shiro only smirked, letting go of her spear. Shiro grabbed the ancient terror's arm and used it as a pole to flip her body behind him, grabbing his horns. She slammed a condensed ball of air to the back of his skull and sent him crashing forward. Crack. Hearing the crack of the spear shattering a part of the skull, Shiro jumped back as rows of teeth exploded out of his back and tried to pierce her, but it failed to reach. You're harder to kill than I expected. Who knew you could cancel out magic? The ancient terror growled. Normally I would have used a different method, but Nyx's divinity is quite handy. Shiro smiled. Unfortunately, she had used her remaining charges on her restrictions in the trial, otherwise she would just activate the restriction of magic. I can see that, but unfortunately for you I am immortal. You cannot kill him. He grinned. Pulling out the spear, he was about to snap it in half when Shiro quickly summoned it back to her hand. While blessed weapons are usually indestructible, she didn't want to risk her chances with something that had been alive for such a long time. Summoning her bow, she notched her spear before firing it at him, diving into the shadows. She reappeared behind him and wrapped her chains around his arms. As for you being immortal, we'll see about that. For all I know, it's just your body. Shiro narrowed her eyes since she dealt with souls rather than the body, canceling his magic once more. She watched as the spear pierced his chest, diving into the shadow once more before the teeth could stab her. Shiro dragged the chains with her as his body was forced to the ground, flicking her wrist. She had the chains wrap around him while a black dress appeared around her body, with her spirit nature activated. She slammed her hand against the ground before dragging out a lantern of sorts that glowed with a turquoise light, snapping her fingers. Butterflies started to appear around him. "Take his soul," she commanded coldly, latching onto him. The butterflies started to chew away as teeth pierced them, but each butterfly would split themselves into two whenever they were killed. Soon, an illusionary image of the ancient terror could be seen as he tried to struggle, but it was useless. "Even if you kill this soul, I won't be dead. Do you know how many souls are in me?" The ancient terror laughed as Shiro knew that he was saying the truth. "I'll find each soul that has been tainted by you and seal them away one by one." Shiro grinned darkly as a green tether appeared on his soul and stretched to the corners of the world. "Do you know what this tether represents? Any soul that has a scent of you. If I seal you within me and drag you to another world, I wonder if you can still awaken. Who knows, maybe I should seal you in this world and have you do your job for as long as I live. I've heard that gods are immortal, so would you be sealed for all time?" Shiro smirked. Before the ancient terror could say anything, his soul was sucked into her lantern, dropping it back into her shadow. She dismissed her true spirit nature before kneeling down with deep breaths. While this was happening, the ancient terror's body shattered to ash. "Just one of many, huh? I need to deal with all the pieces of him, or else he'll keep appearing." Shiro thought with a frown as she remembered the feeling of when she first saw this beast. She had to deal with it quickly. Dismissing the magical darkness that she had enveloped around them, she watched as Quella, Trisha, and Beryl ran toward her. "Where is he?" Beryl asked with a frown. "This one is sealed, but I need to find the others. If even one of the pieces of him survives, then he'll keep appearing. We need to go hunting for him." Shiro replied as Beryl furrowed her brows. "How many pieces of him are there?" she asked. "I don't know. But as long as the tether disappears, that means all of the souls have been sealed away." Shiro shook her head. "I see. Should we tell this to Astrid and conduct another meeting?" Beryl asked. "No. It seems like some of the other heroes are also corrupted, so we don't want more pieces of the ancient terror together in the same place." Shiro shook her head, narrowing her eyes. She understood that it would be difficult to face off more than one copy of him, so finding them one by one was the best choice. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. "Seems like she chose to kill the danger rather than more power, like you said." Gaia smiled. "Yup, though I'm surprised. Despite not obtaining Tartarus divinity, her control of souls is almost on the same level. To think her spirit nature actually allowed her to track down the pieces of the soul. Do you think she can track down the main core of our soul? If she destroys that, gods will lose their immortality and die." Nyx grinned. "I do believe that she might in the future. Little Zeus should watch his step, shouldn't he?" Gaia chuckled. "He's already beyond saving. But we shouldn't say anything. Let a few of the arrogant gods stub their toes against this brick wall and watch them fall." Nyx grinned as Gaia nodded her head. Some of the gods needed to be taught a lesson. Their immortality had gotten to their heads. Glancing at Shiro, she knew the new age was going to be a complete bloodshed with Shiro around. After resting up, Shiro didn't waste any time in hunting down the soul fragments of the ancient terror. The first few pieces she found were actually embedded in the remaining heroes except for Yin, who was rather shocked at her mastery over souls despite not having obtained Tartarus divinity. Seeing her call out the ancient terror, bind him, then seal him away in her soul lantern was quite enlightening for him. They asked for the sisters that were notified of the heroes being corrupted by the ancient terror except for Yin. They were rather shocked at this revelation, especially Astrid, since she didn't know when the heroes had even come in contact with the ancient terror, while Astrid and some of the other sisters were contemplating about where they had gone wrong in selecting heroes for them to have actually been corrupted. Shiro set off to find more shards of the ancient terror. As for Yin, Shiro told him that he can wait by the side, but he said since he can also control souls, it'll be easier if he helped her with his assistance. Dragging the soul out of the ancient terror's body had been quite easy, tracking the tethers all across the world. Shiro and Yin hunted down the ancient terror as the roles were reversed, thanks to Aurena's divinity. Their journey through the section of sky was easy. Despite hunting every day, the tethers never seemed to decrease. With every fragment taken, More seemed to appear as the ancient terror refused to even say anything in the end, furrowing her brows. Shiro had an idea, but she might need Yan's help to accomplish this since her true spirit nature only lasted for less than 2 minutes. That wasn't enough time to do what she wanted, so she'd need Yin to set up the foundations, meeting up with Astron. They sat around a table. So even after hunting for a month straight, we're having some trouble chipping away at how many souls he has. But I have an idea, Shiro said as Astron raised her eyebrows. Oh, what idea would this be? Before I say, I need to ask you about something. Can one transfer energy between people? Or maybe share energy so that they can use it to fuel their abilities? Shiro asked, as this was the key to her plan. If Yin could use her energy, then this was going to be perfect. I believe there are methods, but people don't usually do this. It's because by the time the energy reaches the other person, a lot of it had been wasted trying to do this process, so not many try this. Astron replied with a shake of her head. Oh, that's fine. I got plenty of energy to spare. Shiro grinned as both Astron and Yin looked at her with confusion, but trusted her in the end. They'd been fighting against the ancient terror before, and they knew Shiro would throw out abilities like they were candy, getting Astron to explain the process to her. Shiro's smile twitched as it was essentially throwing water at someone who's on fire with a tiny spoon, but a lot of it would fall to the ground while a few droplets would land on the fire itself. No wonder no one used it, as it was highly inefficient. Thinking about something, Shiro decided to delay their plans for a few days. Give me a few days. I'm going to go experiment with his method a little. It's way too inefficient. Shiro shook her head. Even if she had a lot of energy, she was still essentially chipping away at it with a spoon. Not only was it inefficient, but it was also slow. She needed something faster, confused at what she meant. The two only watched as she walked away and locked herself up in her room, remembering the time that Kuromi had experimented with the new energy in the trial so that they could fight. Shiro couldn't help but chuckle, thinking that she was doing the same as her big sis. Sigh. Remembering Kuromi, Shiro glanced down at her hand and wondered when she'd be able to find her again. Now that she had obtained the power over souls, as well as knowledge in controlling souls thanks to Hades' sigil that she had obtained back on Earth. All she knows is that she needs to find out where her soul is being stored. It could be in her own or in the system, but she hadn't had the chance to find out just yet. Once she does, she'll need to find Kuromi a physical body of sorts. Of course, she'll need to ask about what Kuromi wants to do first, shaking her head. She started to experiment with the ways that she could transfer the energy between people using the one that Astron had told her as a reference. After a short few hours, she was able to come up with one that is much faster but was still considered a prototype. The main changes between the two was that the efficiency was much better, and the speed of transfer had increased from a spoon to a bucket. But for what she wanted to do, a bucket was not enough. She'll need to upgrade it to a high-powered hose, but since this was still a prototype, it was okay. Calling for Yin to meet her, she wanted to test this out a little. You wanted to see me? Yin asked as he knocked on the door. In. I just want to test out my prototype. Come in. Shiro nodded her head. Opening the door, Yin could see Shiro sitting on a chair. Sit on the bed with your back towards me. I'm going to see if the transfer of energy works or not. Hearing this, Yin nodded and sat on the bed like she had instructed. Is there anything I should know? He asked, as he didn't know the risks to this. If you feel like you're about to explode from the energy transfer, tell me, since it means you're bloated. Shiro smiled as Yin widened his eyes in shock. Before he could say anything, Shiro slapped her hand on his back as a magic circle appeared around them. Feeling the sudden gush of energy, Yin had to grit his teeth since it was quite a new sensation. However, it wasn't a painful feeling. Instead, it was quite nice as the energy was cool and calming. Like a gentle stream, it wrapped around his body. But not even 2 seconds later, he felt like the great ocean had just filled his body and that he was about to explode. Stop. Hearing this, Shiro quickly stopped the process. That wasn't even a full bucket though. Shiro frowned. Bucket? Yin turned around with a forced smile, since he was focused on not exploding right now. The original spell made it so that I was essentially giving you a spoon full of energy every time we transfer, but I upgraded it to a bucket. However, a bucket is quite little too. I need a high-powered hose or something. In your terms, I need to upgrade the bucket to a waterfall so that you get the energy you need. Shiro explained as Yen widened his eyes. You want to give me more energy? I'll die. From what he knew, Shiro hadn't even transferred the whole bucket, and he already felt like he was about to die. I can see that, but it's only a buck. Ah, I see the problem. Shiro realized something and sighed. My energy is hundreds of, if not thousands of times bigger than normal people, so it's only natural a bucket of my energy is several people's worth. If they tried this method of mine, they'll completely drain themselves. I'm okay. I think I get the problem now. Give me a few more hours. I should have this finalized. I need a constant stream of energy rather than a bucket so that you can utilize it fast enough for it not to kill you. Ushering Yin out of her room, Shiro returned to experimenting while Yin could only fear for his life, but since she was doing this to get rid of the ancient terror, it was the least that he could do. As expected, Shiro managed to finalize the spell after a few more hours of experimenting. From a bucket to a pipe, she would be able to adjust how much energy is flowing into Yin so that he can output the energy before it killed him. With this, she'd be able to take care of the fine-tuning while they cast the spell. As for the next step, it was to teach him what he must do for the plan she has in mind. Spending the next 2 days teaching Yin about the soul and what she required him to do. Shiro double and triple checked to make sure he understood his role. He was essentially setting up the formation while her butterflies would do the final touches. Do you remember what you need to do? Shiro asked just to make sure. I do. I need to make the formation with Tartarus divinity and infuse my power into it right. Yen asked since his primordial divinity synergized greatly with Shiro's true spirit nature. Good. Follow me. The highest point so far is Aurina's tower, so we'll be going to the top. As for whether or not it starts the trial, I'm not sure. Shiro mused to herself since Yen hadn't completed the tower yet, nodding his head. Yen agreed as two traveled towards the tower, jumping up into the air. She grabbed Yen like he was a bag of rice and flew upwards. Unlike before, she didn't feel any kind of pressure. There were a few monsters that wanted to fight her, but a single glare caused them to bow in submission, seeing as though the defenses were still in place. Shiro wondered if Yen had to complete the tower, arriving at the top. She once again saw the empty throne, but no one appeared to fight them. Seems like we're safe, Shiro muttered as she set Yen down. Uff, has anyone told you that your way of carrying people to the top isn't exactly comfortable? Yen said as Shiro nodded. They have but enough chit-chat. Let's begin. Shiro narrowed her eyes as Yen nodded his head, taking a deep breath. Shiro channeled her divinity as a giant magic circle appeared in front of her, funneling her energy into the divinity. Darkness started to spread out from the tower, expanding into the horizon. Shiro could sense her magic slowly enveloping all 5 sections, and her energy was being drained at a rapid pace. Despite her energy being bountiful, keeping this up for long was still going to be annoying. Yen, Shiro called out as Yen activated a magic circle around them, funneling her energy into his. She watched as a secondary magic circle appeared above the first one as ghostly howls could be heard above them, gritting his teeth. Sweat poured from Yan's face as he had never done something of this scale before. Even for Shiro, this was a new record since she was affecting the entire world. Watching the magic circle expand, Shiro waited for Yan's call. Done. It's stretched to the edge, he shouted as Shiro nodded her head, activating her true spirit nature. A black dress wrapped around her body as she slammed her hand down and pulled out the lantern housing the pieces of ancient terror's soul. Looking at the tethers stretching across the world, Shiro narrowed her eyes and grinned, muttering something in ancient spirit language. Shiro watched as a pillar of light shot into the air and a pale green portal was opened with dark clouds surrounding the edge. World-class magic created. Seeing this notification, Shiro was pleasantly surprised as this never happened to her other spells that she cast in this world, but this was a good sign too since she understood that she had succeeded. Just generate a name for me. I don't care right now, Shiro muttered. Requiem of the Dead has been invoked. Dong. Suddenly, a loud bell toll could be heard as ghostly butterflies swooped down from the portal as a trail of green mist followed behind them. Raising the lantern in her hand, Shiro grinned. Landing on her hand, the butterflies took a whiff of the scent of his soul before rearing their heads back. Ki. Screeching out a horrifying cry, The butterflies flapped their wings and flickered into the distance on top of the butterflies. Ghostly figures with chains followed behind them, and there were even those with scythes. Her spell was one that targeted a single person so that she didn't need to worry about them harming innocents. Of course, if she wished, she can also have them harvest the entire world of its residents, hence the name Requiem of the Dead. In her hands holds the power to destroy this world, but that wasn't her goal. She had only one goal, and that was the ancient terror. After a few short moments, she could hear pained cries as the butterflies and wardens soon returned with an illusionary figure of the ancient terror bound in chains, sucking him into the lantern. Shiro watched as more and more shards of him were absorbed, deactivating her true spirit nature. Shiro watched the spell continue to drain her energy, but it was collecting the souls quickly. There were two ways to deactivate this spell. Either the target has been completely absorbed, or when she canceled it. There were ways to forcefully disable this spell, but it was going to be hard since it absorbed the ambient energy in the world to power itself. Most of this energy came from the towers, so to destroy this would be to destroy the tower, which was impossible. In this world, the spell was unbreakable as the shards were being collected. Yan's face was becoming pale since the constant flow of energy through his body was becoming painful, but he gritted his teeth and pushed on since the spell was almost over. There was now only one tether left. However, no matter how many butterflies went or how many wardens followed, this tether stayed strong, and Shiro understood that it was probably the main body of the ancient terror. Shrugging her shoulders, Shiro deactivated the spell as the portal slowly closed up, sucking all the ghostly figures back, and light returned to the land. Glancing down, Shiro could see the panic on people's faces, but she couldn't care less since there was only one shard left. Once she captures this, they wouldn't need to worry about the ancient terror ever again. Turning towards Yen, she could see that he was laying on the floor panting heavily with sweat pouring out of his face. Trisha and Beryl are in this city. I'll send you to them so that they can help you. I'll go take care of the last shard. Shiro smiled as Yen nodded his head, helping him down. Shiro ignored the shocked glances of people who saw her descend from the top of the tower. Have you sealed him away? Beryl asked. Not yet. I got one last piece to get. Shiro shook her head. That is probably the strongest piece then. Beryl frowned as Shiro chuckled. Don't worry. If he had shattered his soul into so many pieces, then this means that most of his power is in the lantern. She replied while patting Beryl's head. Pouting a little, Beryl rummaged through her bag and gave her a single bottle of medicine. What's this? Shiro asked. Remember when you asked me about medicine to boost your physical parameters? I made it. It'll boost your powers and energy absorption for around 5 minutes, but it's a bit shorter depending on what happens. Beryl said as Shiro smiled. Thank you. Do you need my help? Trisha asked. No, it's fine. It'll be more annoying if the ancient terror aimed for someone other than me. Just keep public order, and I'll be happy. They'd just see the world full of ghosts after all. Shiro laughed as Trisha nodded her head. Big Sis did say that the world darkened all of a sudden and people were panicking, saying that it's the end of the world. The people in the section of night were a bit better, but not by much. Trisha shook her head. Haha, I'll trouble you girls to clean up after me then. I got a goat demon to hunt. Shiro grinned as Trisha nodded. Bidding the two farewell, Shiro shot into the air like a bullet and rushed towards where the tether led to. Arriving in a few short moments, Shiro couldn't help but force a smile. Looking around her, Shiro saw that this was the place where she failed to kill the sapling. The pool of corruption in front of her was a robed woman with blonde hair peeking out from the hood. You've arrived. I'm surprised you could cast such a great spell. The woman smiled. I had some help. I presume you are Siryun, the oldest sister. Shiro narrowed her eyes, pulling down her hood. The woman smiled and nodded her head. What kind of divinity allows you to encroach the entire world with your ghost to collect his fragments? Siryun asked with a small smile. One that you don't need to know about. If I was the ruthless killer, I wouldn't ask you about why you did this. However, I'll give you a chance to explain yourself so that when I kill you I can give your sisters an explanation. Shiro narrowed her eyes. You're really giving me this chance? Despite me wanting to destroy this world? Siryun asked while caressing the corrupted pool with her hand. Raising her hand and looking at the purple liquid, she shook it off. You don't want me to? I can kill you as it is, you know? Shiro smiled as she summoned her sword. Well, if I have a chance of living, then why wouldn't I try to explain myself? You know there are gods always watching, right? Yes, I do. Shiro nodded her head. And I presume you know that this world is detached from the real one, right? Syrian asked as Shiro nodded her head once more. We sisters are souls taken from the real one to act as caretakers of this world. This is the personal playground of the gods where they watch what happens with some mild interference. We sisters have been alive for centuries looking after this world with no goal in mind. I want to see the outside world. I want to break free from this fate of constantly looking after this world. After all, there is no purpose in this world being around. Any technological advances are halted, so we're always stuck in the past. Syrian shook her head as Shiro raised her eyebrow. And you think destroying the world and all its inhabitants is the key? He told me that so long as we break the seal on this world placed by the gods, we'll be able to access the outside world. A few sacrifices are nothing in the long run. You can even take my life so long as my sisters can live outside of this pryzo dash. Siryun widened her eyes as she looked down to see a blade pierce through her chest from behind her. Heis, who the hell would believe someone that keeps trying to destroy the world? Just because I sympathize with your thoughts doesn't mean I accept how you carry it out. Shiro shook her head as she reappeared behind Siryun with a green glow to her eyes. Currently, she had her true spirit nature activated, and she could see the fragment of the ancient terror slowly transforming Siryun's body while they spoke. If she let it be, she would have transformed after their little talk, and she wasn't dumb enough to let her enemy power up in front of her. After all, things could quickly go south if she did. If she didn't try to transform, she might have let her finish her little monologue, pulling the sword out which was now enchanted by a few green runes. Shiro watched as the final piece of the ancient terror's soul was sucked into her lantern. Arg, let me out! The ancient terror shouted out as he crashed against the walls of the lantern. You can shut up for a bit. Shiro narrowed her eyes and unsummoned the lantern, holding Siryun. Shiro narrowed her eyes at her. Just kill me, Siryun muttered as stumbled for a moment. After accepting the core of the ancient terror, she knew that he was eating away at her, but she didn't want to give up the chance of bringing her sisters out of this prison. Even if I didn't wanna, you'll die soon anyways. The ancient terror has made himself a pillar of your soul. Now that I have taken him away, your soul will collapse on itself soon. Shiro sighed as Siryun was beyond saving. I see. Siryun sighed with a shake of her head. They were quite shocked to find out that you're the culprit, you know? They don't believe that you did it. Shiro said as she sat down with Siryun, who was now laying on the ground. Amen. If it was a while ago, I wouldn't believe that I would do this either. Perhaps the cumulative years in this world have made me insane, ha. Siryun laughed before coughing up some blood. I'll do you one favor, though. I got a connection to Nyx, so I can probably talk to her and see what I can do about this place. Shiro sighed as Siryun smiled. Thank you. Watching her close her eyes, Shiro sighed and stood up. However, just as she did this, teeth erupted out from the ground and consumed her body in an instant, widening her eyes. Shiro jumped back in shock. Didn't I take his soul away? How is his body still moving? Shiro thought to herself as the ancient terror's body was slowly being formed where Siryun had died. Glancing over at the pool of corruption, Shiro could see a constant stream of purple liquid flowing towards Siryun's body. Clicking her tongue, Shiro activated her spirit nature and sent out a wave of cold mist to freeze the lake. But just as she did this, the ice shattered in an instant and the liquid continued to flow towards the body. Slamming her hands into the ground, Shiro summoned the lantern. Explain, dipshit, she demanded as the ancient terror only laughed. You may have taken my soul, but my body of sin still lives. As long as the humans continue to sin, my body is immortal. Even if you shatter my soul, it is no use. The ancient terror laughed as she unsummoned her lantern in rage, gritting her teeth. Shiro flicked her wrist and sent out a wave of stone spikes. However, they only shattered on impact as the soulless ancient terror continued to grow in size. Yura? Letting out a ear-shattering howl, Shiro watched as the behemoth punched towards her with his giant fists, activating Aurena's divinity. Shiro managed to dodge, but she didn't know how she could end this monster. If what the ancient terror said was correct, it will continue to regenerate unless humans stop sinning, which was impossible, narrowing her eyes. Shiro wondered what she could do to stop this. Let's see if it's actually immortal. summoning her spear and bow. Shiro notched the spear onto the string. Error. See if you can chip away at it. Shiro commanded as Error bounced around for a moment before wrapping around the spear, humming with excitement. The red circuits glowed brightly, narrowing her eyes. Shiro fired the spear without hesitation. Asterisk bang. Shattering the ground around her, Shiro watched as her spear pierced through the air and into his body, exploding out into a mass of red circuits. Error started to eat away at his body, but strangely enough, it seemed like he was entirely made from liquid, which made it hard for Error to do anything. Returning back to her side, feeling a little down, Shiro patted his head before glancing back at the ancient terror. Just as she was about to dash forward, she felt a little lightheaded and remembered that the pool of corruption was very poisonous for her. Tisk, clicking her tongue, quickly backed off as the behemoth chased after her. As she was dashing away, her system gave her a notification as she saw the quest change slightly. Seal away the ancient terror's body. From killing the ancient terror to sealing his body away. Shiro understood that this was probably something Nyx didn't expect. Seal, seal, seal. I don't do seals. Shiro retorted in her mind, since the only time she seals something is when it is with souls. That behemoth was just a body without a soul. Searching her memories for anything that could possibly seal this behemoth away, Shiro paused in realization. *CK it. Nyx, I'm taking him to your prison. You can deal with it yourself. Shiro shouted into the sky as she started to taunt the behemoth towards the section of night where she had been trapped in the prison during her trial. ####. What the hell do you mean I can deal with it myself? It's your trial. Nyx retorted back as she didn't know what to do with this behemoth either. It was the literal amalgamation of humanity's sins in the Forgotten Realm, so unless she killed everyone, he will continue to regenerate. Even if she sealed it away, it'll keep getting stronger so long as the people in the Forgotten Realm continue to exist. Good luck. Gaia chuckled. Don't give me that crap. You help too. Nyx gritted her teeth. Despite her displeasure, she understood that this was beyond Shiro, so she'd need to help her out. Shrugging her shoulders, Gaia nodded her head and proceeded to help Nyx, taunting the ancient terror with her. It wasn't hard for the news to reach the people as they quickly evacuated all the villages that were in her path toward the section of night, while she was dashing through the air with sweat dripping down her face. Shiro was trying her best to dodge the tentacles made from the pool of corruption since it was poisonous. What the hell is that? Quella's butterfly flew next to her. It's the ancient terror. Well, his body. I stole his soul, but his body is immortal. I'm taking him to where I did Nyx's trial since there is a prison there that is very hard to escape from. Shiro replied while diving down to dodge a jaw that suddenly snapped towards her. Turning around, she waved her hand as she started to terraform the land, opening up a giant chasm for the behemoth. She had several stone spikes pierce into his body and hold him in place for now. Do you need any help? Quella asked as she knew that this was serious. Just keep evacuating the people, and I'll be happy. Shiro replied as the behemoth climbed out of the chasm with ease. The stone spikes couldn't stop him for too long since his body was basically liquid. He could turn into a pool of corruption whenever he wanted, traveling across the land. The speed of their travel was quite shocking due to the ancient terror's large size. Thankfully, it wasn't hard for the sisters to evacuate people as his large size made him easily be spotted. As long as people were smart, they'd run away at the first sight of him. Halfway through their journey, Shiro watched as he spread open his wings and tried to fly, but with Aurena's divinity, she was able to stop this from happening. If he started to fly, it would reduce the amount of time that people would get to evacuate the villages and cities. Seeing the tower come closer, Shiro decided to go on ahead a little so that she could try to open up the prison again if she could. After completing the trial and exiting the tower, there were still magical signs of the prison entrance, but it was faint. She needed to reopen this and maybe even make it larger so that the ancient terror could actually fit in the portal. Upon arrival, Shiro saw a faint figure of someone rather familiar. How the **CK are you here? Shiro asked as Nyx was waiting with her arms crossed and had a forced smile on her face. Why wouldn't I be here? You wanted to pass this behemoth into my hands. Nyx retorted with a roll of her eyes while Quella was confused by who this was. Who is that? She asked curiously. It's Nyx, the owner of this tower. Shiro introduced as Nyx only smiled and waved her hand lightly. Ah, pausing in shock, Quella was speechless as she didn't know what to say. Anyways, I'm here with Gaia's help. Basically, I want to tell you that my prison wouldn't work with this guy. The only reason that the barrier works is that their soul is sealed with their body, so they can't leave. Since he is just a husk, there's no way for my barrier to stop him. *T. What the hell can I do then? Shiro asked as she glanced back at the behemoth who was slowly approaching. His figure was obscured by the darkness, but his presence could be felt with ease. Two choices so far. First choice is to give the soul back to the body, and then we can seal it away. But if his soul is there, it means he can break out a little like what you did before. My prison isn't perfect, it's something I made for fun. Nyx explained. What's the second option then? Find somewhere you can put him where no one would bother him, and where he can't affect anyone. There's only space or a different dimension. But even then, people might hop into the dimension like I did. Shiro forced a smile as Nyx nodded. Exactly. Who the hell would think that he had gotten this powerful? I'm not kidding when I say his mortal body is indeed immortal. But he is mindless. So it'll be easy to seal him away, I guess. Nyx shook her head. Any tips on how I can do this? Shiro forced a smile. Become a true demigod. Nyx shrugged. Pardon, did I stutter? I said become a true demigod. You can't become a god just yet, but demigod is possible. Once you become a demigod, you'll gain access to your own divinity, and that should help you take care of the behemoth. Okay, how do I become a demigod and how would my divinity help? Does it somehow get rid of immortality? Shiro asked. Nope. He has what we call true immortality, so the only way is to seal him away forever. As for how you become a demigod, I'm sure you already know the key. You just want me to confirm it, don't you? Nyx rolled her eyes, shrugging her shoulders with a small smile. Shiro brought out the jewel that she had gotten from Astron. Bingo. There's a limit to the amount of information that I can give, but that is your key. Nyx smirked as her figure flickered for a moment. Final gift before I leave. You should thank Gaia, you know? You two are pretty similar, and if not for the fact that she likes you, I don't think you would have gotten this gift from her. Snapping her fingers, 2 orbs of light appeared in the space in front of them. What is this? Shiro asked as Nyx pushed the 2 orbs to Shiro. 2 shards of our primordial essence. We're essentially giving you a part of what makes both me and Gaia gods, so that you can attain demigod status at an earlier stage. Good luck. Nyx smiled as her body disappeared. ###************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************̈ even then, people might hop into the dimension like I did. Shiro wrapped around her. System backlash. Gaia asked as Nyx nodded. TCH, stingy thing, doesn't like what we're doing. But the trial is impossible without her becoming a demigod and obtaining her own divinity. Nyx shook her head as Gaia agreed. But at least we've given everything she needed. What happens next is up to her. #####, furrowing her brows. Shiro looked towards Quella's butterfly. Is he near? If he is, see if he can delay the behemoth. If not, then never mind. He is in a different section. He won't be able to help you. A shame then. Let's do this. Shiro took a deep breath and activated her true spirit nature, slamming her hand down. A giant magic circle expanded out above her as narrowed her eyes. Frozen slumber. Suddenly, hundreds of chains descended from the magic circle as it started to freeze the ancient terror. While he may be able to shatter the ice quickly, it was sufficient enough to keep delaying his advances. While the ancient terror was being delayed, Shiro glanced at the jewel and closed her eyes. After Nyx transferred the primordial essences to her, Shiro could sense the energy within the jewel with more clarity. It had no element and was untainted. The moment she touches this energy, it'll belong to her forever. Clutching her hand, she gathered her energy in her fist and shattered the jewel. Just as she did this, a pillar of light shot into the sky as time seemed to stop. Emergency. Entity Shiro is about to attain demigod status as a Tier 5 individual. She has obtained Gaia and Nyx's support. Chaos has marked her. Several gods within the Greek pantheon have expressed their desire to help. Administrator 4 has expressed his intent to support this upgrade. Several administrators have agreed as her reward was decreased in her previous upgrade. With overwhelming support, The system shall grant her the role as the first ever Tier 5 demigod despite previous decisions. She will now discover her divinity. Title: Young Demigod has been granted. Finding herself in a white space. Shiro could see several orbs of light in front of her, which flickered with light. The system was silent, but she understood that this was her seeking out her divinity. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards the first orb. The first orb was chill to the touch. It would crystallize the moment she approached it, and she understood that it represented ice. Is the divinities being chosen from the elements I have control over? But there are people with divinities that have nothing to do with elements too. Shiro furrowed her brows, thinking about this. She couldn't help but wonder if her habit of targeting the weakness could become a divinity too. I don't think I pierced enough asses for it to become a divinity, she muttered, shaking her head. She approached the second orb, crackling with red lightning. The orb lashed out at everything around her but seemed to calm down once she was near. So this is lightning. Shiro smiled while glancing over at the other orbs. There were a total of 12 excluding the 2 that she had just approached, understanding that they represented each of her elements with the exception of the 12th thone. She approached it with curiosity. The moment she approached it, the orb lit up with a turquoise flame, and she understood what it was. It was a divinity related to her status as a spirit. Looking at her divinities, her main focus was on her nanotech element. While she may use the other elements and even study up on souls, her main element was still nanotech. It was similar to the power of creation, as she can make anything she wanted to, as long as she had a deep understanding of it, which meant that she can make diamonds without anyone able to tell the difference. And the moment they touched the diamond, it could turn into a gun if Shiro wanted it to. Plus, it was the power that she was most familiar with. If I chose this, it should help me deal with this behemoth. Shiro thought to herself, since this divinity should return the use of nanobots to her. Once she gets this, she could easily send the behemoth to space. Taking a deep breath, she reached out towards the orb representing nanotech without hesitation. *KRR. The moment she grabbed it, she could feel a flow of energy entering her body from the orb as a familiar sensation spread through her body. Flexing her fingers, a hand cannon appeared in her hand as her lips curled up into a grin. Just as she created this gun, she could feel her body heat up as runes started to appear on her arm. Despite her pain tolerance, she couldn't help but grit her teeth as the searing pain traveled up her arm. Feeling as though her body was being ripped apart, Shiro held back a cry of pain as the runes glowed with a silver-blue light. Looking at the pillar of light, Quella became nervous since the behemoth was traveling closer and closer. Come on, she muttered in her mind as they were a little pressed for time right now. Even the delays that Shiro had put in the behemoth's path failed to hold up due to his body shifting to a liquid state. Boom. As if the pillar of light had hit the ceiling, a ring of golden energy exploded out in the sky as stars started to light up, linking to each other with thin tethers. Quella watched in silence as the energy she could feel from Shiro started to change. It slowly changed into something that resembled the feeling one got from the towers, but at the same time it was slightly different. Bang. Shattering the pillar of light, Shiro stood in the middle with her eyes closed, stumbling forward a little. Shiro tried her best to not fall over as the pain she had gone through felt worse than even the experiments she had experienced in her first life. Shiro, are you okay? What happened? Quella called out as Shiro glanced towards her. Nothing much. I'll talk later. I feel like I'm about to pass out at any moment, so I'll deal with this behemoth first. Shiro forced a smile and turned towards the behemoth who was making his way towards her rapidly. Taking a deep breath, Shiro aimed 2 fingers at the behemoth and narrowed her eyes. Just as she did this, nanobots started to appear around her as they morphed into large rail cannons in front of Nyx's tower. Pulling the trigger, Shiro watched as all the cannons fired in tandem and the upper half of the behemoth was evaporated in an instant. *KSHHH. Realizing that he was now missing his upper half, the behemoth's body twitched for a moment before flesh started to regrow, unfortunately for him. Nanobots were already in his body, clasping her hands together. Shiro took a deep breath and activated the nanobots. Suddenly, a swarm of silver exploded out from the monster's body as Shiro knew what was happening But that was just to delay things for a little while. Snapping her fingers, a cage started to appear as several thrusters could be seen around the cage. Since he was immortal, she might as well have him drift forever into space. Without hesitation, she activated the thrusters. Watching this all happen, Quella was speechless as she didn't know what kind of power this was. She didn't want to say anything just yet either since Shiro was focusing right now. If she distracted her, things might go south. Forcing herself to stay awake, Shiro had to fight against the pain that she could still feel in her body while sending the behemoth to space. If she stopped, it could suddenly fall back down like a meteor. Sensing the position of the behemoth, Shiro wanted it to drift forever, but not towards a planet since that'd defeat the purpose. If anything, she'd lock it up in the far reaches and make sure the thrusters stop it from drifting to a planet. Once the behemoth was out of the atmosphere, Shiro could see its entire body start to bubble and boil as he was mostly made from liquid. In space, with the low pressure, liquid would boil rather than freeze. Narrowing her eyes, she took a deep breath and upgraded the thrusters. She didn't want to use it at first since it would have caused quite a bit of damage, but now that it was in space, she didn't need to worry, setting it up so that the nanobots could automate themselves thanks to them constantly consuming the behemoth's body, which would regenerate indefinitely. Shiro knew that the thrusters would make it impossible for the behemoth to land on a different planet. With her main worry sorted, Shiro sighed in relief before collapsing on the ground, curling her body into a fetal position. Quella could see her body shivering as cold sweat poured from her head. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Seems like the real test is happening now. Nyx muttered. Normally, the process ends once the light shatters, but Shiro was there still experiencing the change. Do you think it's because she chose that strange element? Gaia frowned as Nyx nodded her head. We also gave her our primordial essence, so it's going to take a while for her to digest it. Nyx shrugged, but while the two were thinking about what happened, Nyx sighed before turning around. Suddenly, two portals opened up as both Auranas and Tartarus appeared before her. What brings you two here? Nyx smiled. You know why we're here. Why did you give a part of your primordial essence to the mortal? Auranas frowned. Because she needed it, why else? Nyx shrugged. Not only did you harm yourself, but you're also harming her. Do you know the consequences of having primordial essences as the first materials when ascending to godhood? Look at her. Her body is being broken down constantly. Auranas pointed at the shivering Shiro. I understand why you want to help her for the future, but think about it first. Her unique element is already powerful enough as it is. I think she could have ascended to godhood even without your essences, but now that you have given two primordial essences to her, her body is trying its best to digest the power, but this is something lower-class gods can't handle. What makes you think she can? Auranas, do you know what the main property of her nanobots is? Nyx asked with a smile. What? Consumption. They consume, recycle, repurpose, and refine themselves. What do you think will happen if her nanobots consume and refine themselves with the essence of two primordial gods? Nyx grinned. Widening his eyes, Auranas looked at Nyx like she was crazy. Despite her power, Nyx wanted to make Shiro into a monster even amongst the strongest gods. Amen. Groaning softly, Shiro opened her eyes and found herself beneath a black sky. Furrowing her brows, Shiro tried to sit up straight, but realized that she had no strength in her body. Don't force yourself. Your body has just finished digesting our power, I suppose. Congrats, you've become a proper demigod. Well, goddess, Nyx chuckled as Shiro glanced towards her. Unlike the trial, Nyx was now here in the flesh, which caused Shiro to furrow her brows. What about the trial? She asked. You've passed it with flying colors. Nyx chuckled as Shiro sighed. She wanted to say goodbye to Quella and the others if she could, but it seems like her body was sent out of the trial after she was knocked unconscious. Oh, by the way, are you able to do me a favor? Shiro asked. Are you talking about Siryun's wish? Nodding her head, Shiro watched as Nyx pulled up a chair and crossed her legs. You see, there is a slight problem with that. The creation of the Forgotten Realms makes it so that it is technically classed as a dungeon within the system. Freeing it means that the effects of the towers are spread to the world outside too, which may cause quite a few problems, especially Gaia's divinity. Plus, there's the additional problem of your world not being ready for a surplus of divine energy. Sending this world over would cause quite a few problems. Though overall the world there is probably safer than your world considering what's about to happen in the near future. I see. Is Syrian right though? That the sisters are souls taken from our world and used as caretakers in this one. Also, what is the purpose of the Forgotten Realm? Shiro asked. To see if we can manually make a garden ourselves to keep the universe from ending. You know your garden is the last one, right? And that once it fails the test, the universe resets. We wanted to see if we could make one, and that was the Forgotten Realms. The experiment was rather unsuccessful, so now we have a place which is technically regarded as a dungeon rather than a garden. Nyx shook her head. As for the sisters, yes, it's true that they're souls we extracted from other worlds. Hearing this, Shiro sighed. If some of the sisters wanted to leave, would you let them? Shiro asked. It's not up to me. They're bound to this dungeon. To leave, they'll need to break out of the dungeon themselves. But once they leave, they'll be classified as monsters by the system since they broke out of a dungeon. But you're not saying it's impossible now, are you? Shiro raised her eyebrow. Nope. Perhaps you can set them free once the age of demons and gods is over. Nyx chuckled as Shiro nodded her head. Is there a way for me to access this place again then? There is, but it's a little harder now that you're a demigod. Take this, you can store it in your inventory. Nyx smiled and handed her a golden key. Key to the Forgotten Realms. You can use this in the future once things have settled down a little. If you want, I can use a bit of my power so that I can project you into the world for a bit. That way you can say goodbye if you want. Nyx offered. That would be great. It'll be quite rude for me not to say goodbye after their help. Shiro chuckled while storing the key away. Close your eyes. Nyx instructed as Shiro nodded her head, closing her eyes. She could feel Nyx's energy enter her body as her vision shifted. Pound percent dollar carat percent dollar. Holy crap. Quella suddenly jumped up as Shiro appeared in front of her out of nowhere. Shiro, she asked curiously. Sup? Shiro waved her hand. Also, you're still alive. You had me worried, you know. Quella pouted as some tears could be seen on the edge of her eyes when Shiro collapsed. Her body started to disperse into gold flickers of light, and there wasn't anything that she could have done to stop it from happening. She thought that Shiro had died, which didn't seem to be the case, so she could rest with ease now. I'm sorry about that. I didn't really have a say in whether or not I wanted to leave this place just yet. But Nyx is kind enough to let me say goodbye to you girls. Shiro chuckled. You're going back to your world, huh? Quella sighed. I have to. Shiro nodded. I see. Will you visit us often? Quella asked. I'll try. I got a key that allows me to access this realm, but Nyx said that it'll be a bit harder now that I'm a demigod. Shiro chuckled. Heis, making me go insane even with a goodbye. So you're a demigod now? Yup. Shiro grinned. Is there a tower for your divinity? I hope not, since I want to tug my hair out at the things people would do with your power. Quella chuckled. Please don't. You'll go bald. Shiro laughed. Baldness is the least of my concerns with you around. Quella rolled her eyes. Haha, perhaps. As for a tower for my divinity, I'm not sure, but I doubt it. Shiro shrugged. Do you know your divinity then? Quella asked. I do, but it's kind of hard to describe it. Basically, I'm able to make anything I want as long as I understand it properly. Remember the swarm of tiny silver things that appeared when I made some weapon and attacked the ancient terror? Yeah, what about them? They're called nanobots, and it's what allows me to create anything I want. So you're basically the goddess of creation now? Quella raised her eyebrow. I wouldn't go that far since I can't create proper life just yet. Maybe in the future. Shiro shook her head. I don't like the fact that you put a yet in your sentence. Have you got a title then demigoddess? Quella laughed. I don't. And here I was thinking that I should have someone make a statue of you with your name and title carved into the base like the other statues we have of the primordial gods. Quella smiled. Well, you can just put Shiro, demigoddess of machines, or machine demigoddess, I suppose. Shiro shrugged since she still remembered that she had a cult of people who worshipped her as the machine goddess back in her old world. I'll keep that in mind then. Where's Trisha and Beryl? I want to say bye to them too before this vision expires. Shiro asked. They're on their way here now. I had my familiars inform them. Quella smiled. I see. Nyx, how long do I have here? Shiro asked. You have quite a while since talking to these girls isn't that difficult. Talking to you, however, was difficult. Even with my power, I could only talk to you for less than 3 minutes, you know? Nyx replied as Shiro chuckled. Thanks. The fact that you can talk to a primordial goddess with such nonchalance is to be respected. Quella face-palmed. Fufu you can as well, you know. Shiro grinned. You know, if mortals did something like that, a few gods would have smite them then and there. You're an exception, Nyx reminded, and I'm going to capitalize the crap out of it. Shiro laughed, which caused Nyx to roll her eyes. As the three talked for a bit. Beryl and Trisha soon arrived. Sup, sorry for leaving without saying anything. I didn't really have a choice. Shiro waved as Beryl pouted. And here I wasted my tears for you, she muttered while sitting down on a nearby chair. Well, it's good that you're alive. Quella has already informed us of your new status through the familiars. Congratulations. Trisha smiled as Shiro nodded her head. Thank you. Spending some time with the three and telling them a bit about her world. Nyx informed Shiro that time was running out. I'll see if I can come back properly next time so that I can give Beryl another pat on the head. Shiro chuckled as Beryl only rolled her eyes. Improve your technique first. It's not comfortable at all. Beryl pouted as Shiro laughed. Sure, I got 2 daughters and a son that I can practice my patting techniques on. My daughters are a bit older, but they like to be pampered. Shiro chuckled as Quella was shocked to find out that Shiro had 2 daughters and a son, seeing her body flicker. Shiro knew that time was up. It's good seeing you 3 again. Once I finish saving my world, I'll come back for a holiday with my family, okay? See you soon. Shiro smiled as they nodded their heads, watching Shiro disappear. The 3 couldn't hold back their tears anymore. In the next few weeks, they had a statue of Shiro on a throne with her legs crossed. She was resting her chin on her hand with a nonchalant smile, and beneath the statue was a plate with her name carved into it. Shiro, demi-goddess of machines. Opening her eyes once more, Shiro found herself back on Nyx's bed. Done? Nyx asked just to make sure. Yup, all done. Shiro nodded. Since you've done what you wanted to do, shall we get to the rewards of this trial? I must say, the reward pool is rather impressive. Nyx chuckled. Sure. Shiro nodded with some excitement. I'll get the system to split this into 3 categories so that it's not too overwhelming, okay? But first, let's get to your clear rank. Nyx smiled. Trial complete. Grade S+. Main quest completion A+. Secondary main quest completion S++. Side quest completion S+. Special achievement completions S+. What's the special achievement completions? Shiro asked curiously. That's things like getting blessed weapons and helping a girl discover augments to weapons. Nyx replied as Shiro nodded her head. Since your final grade is S+, you'll get the best rewards this quest has to offer. The first category that we're going through is title and title improvements. Nyx smiled as Shiro saw a few notifications in her system. Advanced monster upgraded twice. Advanced monster - expert monster 13 029 /100 000 humans killed. Expert monster 13 029 /100 000 humans killed. Stat points are now worth an additional 350% of the original values. Before, 1 VIT equals 50 HP. After, 1 VIT equals 175 HP. Young demigod. As the youngest demigod, you receive the following benefits: 100% increase to divine energy plus 30%. Resistance to all elements plus 20% damage with all spells that include divine energy special skill. Ascension you can imbue your current form or an active form with divine energy, ascending it to the status of demigod. Cost N/iteration 1 hour cooldown. 3 days. Looking at these 2 titles, Shiro couldn't help but widen her eyes in surprise. Wait, my monster title leveled up twice? Shiro asked with shock. Yup, that's a 350% boost. You did massacre a small city after all. Nyx shrugged her shoulder. Even if Shiro didn't kill the whole city, it was still quite bloody. So is that all the titles? Shiro asked. What? Do you want more? Nyx's smile twitched a little as Shiro chuckled. Well, I did complete your trial and almost obtain the full boundary, no? It's just attack right now, but it should be pretty good, no? Shiro grinned. I'll give you a hint then. If you had gotten the full boundary, you would have gotten the title. But since it's only half, you're a little short. Nyx rolled her eyes as Shiro nodded her head. Before they could continue to the next category of rewards, Shiro sensed some divine energy behind her. As she glanced up, she saw a beautiful woman with emerald hair and a charming smile. Hello. Shiro raised her eyebrow. Hi. Nice to meet you. I'm Gaia, and I'm a huge fan of the way you kill. Gaia smiled as she wanted to shake Shiro's hand, but decided against that considering her current state. Asterisk sigh. Gaia, we're going through the rewards right now. Can you wait till after we're done? Didn't I tell you to wait outside, and we'll have her meet everyone else once she's done with the reward? Nyx sighed. Well, I wanted to see her. Gaia shrugged. Be patient. Are you a primordial goddess or are you a child? Nyx rolled her eyes. I can be both, Gaia said with a smug grin as her body transformed into that of a child's. Whatever. Just wait with the others. Nyx rolled her eyes, shrugging her shoulders. Gaia turned to Shiro and gave her a small wave. See you soon. She smiled and disappeared. Ignore her. She's usually more reserved than this. Nyx forced a smile. I see. She seems rather happy about murder despite her status. Shiro chuckled. While she had guessed as much when she had to feed the seed with blood, it was still surprising to see it for herself. She's just as much of a battle junkie as you are. It's just that she's not that good at combat, so it's hard for her to live her dream. Nyx shrugged. Anyways, for the second category, we have the special weapons. Unfortunately for you, you don't keep your blessed weapons. But since you did discover Hephaestus masterpieces, you have those instead. Nyx smiled as Shiro nodded her head. Now here's the good thing about the masterpieces. You can merge them with your current equipment. Imagine them as augments that Maria created, but this time, Hephaestus created it. Nyx chuckled as Shiro nodded her head. So, do you want to take it with you for now, or do you want it to be in your inventory and you can use it at a later date? I'll use it at a later date. I'm pretty happy with the stuff I have now. Shiro replied. In figures. The final section is items and skills. Shouldn't that be 2 sections rather than 1? Shiro forced a smile as Nyx chuckled since that was true. Well, the thing is that you've already used one of the items which allowed you to become a demigod. Item-wise you didn't get much, but they're very powerful. Hence why I wanted to put the 2 categories together, but this is fine too. As you know, you had the jewel that allowed you to ascend to godhood, but there are 3 other items. Nyx smiled. You have received Necklace of the Primordial, Call of the Primordial, and Runic Guardian. Necklace of the Primordial, Rainbow. This is a necklace that has been imbued with the power of the primordial gods, allowing you to access their power for a short period of time. You may use each god's power once. Nyx, Primordial Goddess of the Night, 1 of 1 Gaia. Primordial Goddess of the Earth, 1 of 1 Uranus. Primordial God of the Sky, 1 of 1 Tartarus. Primordial God of the Underworld, 1 of 1 Kronos. Primordial God of Time, January 1st. Call of the Primordial, Rainbow. You may call upon the power of the primordial gods to help you in your time of need. Each god will appear for 10 minutes, and they will have access to 70% of their full power. You may call on each god once. Nyx, Primordial Goddess of the Night, 1 of 1 Gaia. Primordial Goddess of the Earth, 1 of 1 Uranus. Primordial God of the Sky, 1 of 1 Tartarus. Primordial God of the Underworld, 1 of 1 Kronos. Primordial God of Time, January 1st. Runic Guardian, Black. This Guardian can be used 10 times. When activated, a Guardian will appear that has 100% of your power, including its impressive defense guaranteed by Hephaestus himself. To activate this, you channel your energy into the rune stone to summon him. You may split the rune stone for others to use, and they will be able to summon the Guardian. 10/10 raising her eyebrows. Shiro glanced at the rewards and couldn't help but blink for a few moments. I got 2 rainbow grade items, Shiro asked as Nyx nodded her head. You know, if we didn't win over the other gods, you would have only gotten a black grade item that allows you to call upon both mine and Gaia's power instead of everyone. Even the stubborn Uranus is on your side now. Nyx chuckled as Shiro smiled. Thank you. Shiro smiled as Nyx nodded her head. You're welcome. Now, with the best till last, are you ready for your skills? Nyx asked as Shiro nodded her head. You have received 2 skills. Only 2? Be patient and read them first. The first one is one tailored to you, and the second is something that I'm jealous of myself. Nyx smiled as Shiro nodded her head slowly. The first skill she got was something called Limit Focus. Limit Focus, EX. You are able to convert your stats into raw power. You can use this power for perception, defense, or attack. Once you have converted the stats into raw power, you cannot get the stats back for the next 10 hours. Cost, stat points duration, 1 hour cooldown. N/A looking at the description of limit focus. Shiro couldn't help but wonder what would happen if she stacked this on top of her other skills that enhance her attack. Just thinking about what her attack would be like fueled by the might of her INT stat. Shiro couldn't help but worry for the integrity of her world. As for the final skill, one that Nyx was jealous of. Shiro saw that its name was Blessing of Chaos. Blessing of Chaos. You have gained the Blessing of Chaos herself. You can imbue yourself with her power for the following acts. Ignore all system restrictions and be promoted to system. Privilege level 12. Cost. N/A duration. 3 hours cooldown. 3 months gain her power for combat. With this, you are allowed to use Origin at will along with the Divinity of Chaos. Cost. N/A duration. 1 minute cooldown. 1 month. Looking at this skill, Shiro widened her eyes in shock. You see why I'm envious? Even the primordial gods are bound by system restrictions. However, with this, you can now free yourself of all system restrictions. Nyx grinned as Shiro nodded her head. But there was one thing that Nyx didn't mention. The fact that she can now upgrade this skill thanks to the 5th ability of Pandora's Requiem. Divine Enchantment. After seeing all of her rewards, Shiro wondered what her stat page looked like now, but the moment she looked at it, her eyes widened in an instant. Holy F***CK. Shiro called out in surprise as she understood how Madison felt now. After all, she also gained quite a few levels from the trial. Name: Shiro. Race: Spirit Demigod. Title: Expert Monster. 13 029/100 000 humans killed. Fratricide: Creator of the Frozen Hell series. Incomplete. Creator of Style Azura's Path. Seeker of Truths. Revolutionary. Celestial Empress EX. Benevolent Saint EX. Error Code: Genocide. One of a kind. Virtue of Fortitude. Young Demigod level 300 class. Divine Sylph Nanomancer. Ascendant EX. HP 1 837 500 000/1 837 500 000 MP 9 872 625 000/9 872,625,000. STR 16 400 000 VIT 10 500 000 INT 56,415 000 AGI 10 300 000 DX 11 900 000 DF 7 800 000 unassigned. Points: 0 attunements. Cosmic. Ice. Tier 5 Apocalyptic Lightning. Tier 5 Stygian. Steel. Tier 5 Astral Rift. Tier 5. Augmented with Calamity's Will. Void Star. Tier 5 Celestial Star. Tier 5 Dark Celestial Phoenix Fire. Tier 5 Boreal. Wind. Tier 5 Tectonic Quake. Tier 5 Oceanic Abyss. Tier 5 Nature. Tier 5. Tier Nanotech. Tier 6 Skills. Error. Extraction Divine Sylph Nanomancer. Elemental Breath. Celestial Mirage. Force of Elements. Divine Raiment EX. Tier 5 Element Magic. Rift Strider EX. Divine Empress Domain EX. Monster Skill. Rejuvenation EX. Advanced Elemental Mastery. Spirit Assistance EX. Divine Court Appointment. Empress Blessing. Shared Burden. Nanotech Engineering Tier 5. Analysis. True Spirit Nature. Frozen Hell Series. Frozen Slumber. Azure Hell Fire. Borealis Lance. Frozen Chandelier. Ancient Healing Arts. Fire of Life. Grace Path of Ascendance. Phantom Path. Celestial Path. Pandora's Requiem. Reaper. Limit Break. Origin. War Saint. Divine Enchantment. Current Blessings. Asteria. Athena. Aphrodite. Ares. Artemis. Hades. Hermes. Poseidon. Nyx. Gaia. Chaos. World-Class Magic. Requiem of the Dead. Other. Minimap. Inspection. Disguise. Combust. Heavenly Constellation. Aurora. Chimera Arts. Divine Gardens. Hollow Deceit. Kitoma. Divine Language. Wrath of Stars. Eyes of the Gorgon. Miracle. Sigil of Night. Encroaching darkness, skill scholar. Item master, limit focus, blessing of chaos. Looking at her stats, Shiro couldn't believe that she had leveled up to 301 go after clearing this trial. Hell, the fact that her monster title now triples her stat values were one of the main blames of the insane stats, but it was still crazy to see it for herself. Quite bountiful, huh? Nyx smirked as Shiro nodded her head dumbly, remembering her stats as a tier 6. Shiro realized that she was on the cusp of surpassing herself in her prime. Only this time she was a demigod at tier 5, as well as a spirit queen. Now then, I believe you are the last to complete your trial, so after meeting a few of the primordial gods, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Nyx smiled as Shiro glanced over at her. That was rather short, I guess, so I can't see you again. Not until the age of demons and gods arrives. Nyx chuckled. I see. Quick question, is Kuromi still there? I'm pretty sure you know the answer to that. You're the same soul, so obviously she'll be there. However, if you're wondering about her incarnation/personality, yes, she is. You know you two are the same people, right? Nyx raised her eyebrow. Well, I know we're the same person, but she kind of became my big sis, so. Shiro turned her head away as there was a blush on her face. Haha, how cute. But it's essentially schizophrenia. Cutting her out/bringing her back would essentially cripple you. Nyx said as Shiro sighed at the harsh truth. With her knowledge on souls, she understood that the moment she brought Kuromi out, it'll be similar to what happened to Siryun when she extracted the ancient terror. Her soul would collapse, but she didn't want to give up on the chance of bringing back her big sis. Sometimes you have to move on. I've seen life pass in a blink of an eye, so my perspective is a little different. Perhaps you can create a miracle like what has happened before. But maybe it's better to wait until after the garden survives. Nyx smiled as Shiro sighed and nodded her head. Amen. So how did my friends do in their trial? Shiro asked. Their trials went pretty good too. They haven't ascended to demigod status like you, however. They are rather close. Nyx smiled as Shiro nodded her head. Snapping her finger, Nyx created a pink wheelchair with flowers. Let's go meet the others now, Nyx said with a smug grin. Looking at the wheelchair with dead fish eyes, Shiro glanced at Nyx. I can't even move right now. Do you think I can reject? I know, and I love it. No wonder Nintion had so much fun teasing you when you were incapacitated. Nyx laughed as Shiro reappeared on the wheelchair. Staying silent, Shiro accepted her fate, pushing Shiro through a portal. Nyx arrived next to her tea table with Aurenas, Tartarus, Gaia, and Kronos. Finally, I was getting bored while waiting. Gaia sighed as the other gods looked towards her, and so the young demi-goddess arrives. Tartarus smiled. Sup, kinda disabled right now. Otherwise I would nod my head, Shiro said while glancing towards Tartarus. TCH, no respect at all. Aurenas huffed. Ignore that man. He sounds rough, but he was most worried when we gave you our essences. After all, your body might not be able to take it. Nyx laughed. So it's Sundara. Got it. So how come you wanted me to meet them? Shiro asked. Right. So basically, they wanted a contract with you for the age of demons and gods. You know how the universe is going to reset if the garden fails? They want you to win and in return give them a spot in the new world. Nyx smiled as Shiro raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? You see, if you win the age of demons and gods, you get to pick and choose the roles each god plays. These guys want to retain their privilege as primordial gods and Gaia just enjoys being with you. Nyx explained as Shiro furrowed her brows. Explain it in detail, please. What does winning the age of demons of gods do exactly except keeping the world intact? So far you're telling me that I can assign gods now. Shiro asked. In a nutshell, you become the overseer of the universe in a way. Gaia explained with a smile. Hearing this, Shiro furrowed her brows. And if I contract with you, what can you do for me? We will assist you to the best of our abilities when the new age comes. There are some restrictions on what we can do as we are primordials, but our assistance is still better than what you can get from allying with the lesser gods. Kronos replied. I see. Can you give me more time to think about this? Shiro asked as she didn't want to make a hasty decision. Plus, she didn't trust gods that much except for Nyx and maybe Gaia, who gave Shiro a part of her essence. Even then, it was still debatable since she could be getting a bigger return. That's fine. We can contract when the new age comes. They just wanted to tell you their intentions now, so you don't have to worry about them contracting with someone else. Nyx chuckled as Shiro nodded her head. With that being said, I suppose it's time for her to leave. Even for a demigod, she cannot stay for a long time. Tartarus said as Nyx nodded her head. Yup, we'll see you in the new age maybe sooner if you use the items. But we'll be watching what you do. Nyx glanced at Shiro, snapping her fingers. A portal opened up as Shiro's body flickered away. ####, furrowing her brows. Shiro wanted to shield her eyes, but the best she could do was close them against the blinding light. Once that was over, she found herself at the base of Mount Olympus with a wheelchair. In front of her was her party, who was shocked at her sudden appearance. They all had new armors and weapons while Shiro was in a wheelchair. Sup? Before we start talking about what the F***ck happened, why don't we find somewhere private first? Madison said with a forced smile, seeing Shiro's current state. I agree. Someone might have to push my chair, though. I can't move a single muscle other than my head. Shiro replied back as Lyrica walked behind her and pushed her chair as they were making their way to an inn. Shiro was curious about her mana realm, as it was rather quiet. Normally, Nimue would be crazy right now lecturing her. Peeking into her mana realm slowly, she saw Nimue laying on the grass floor with a face that seemed to show that she's lost her purpose in life. Are you okay? Shiro asked hesitantly. Oh, I'm feeling great. Why do you ask? Nimue glanced over at her without moving her body. Well, you seem rather. I don't even know how to explain it. Shiro forced a smile. How would you describe the feeling after seeing you perform ridiculous tasks after tasks, completing god trials, creating world-class magic, becoming a demigod, and hell, even getting the primordials on your side? Nimue replied as Shiro scratched her hair embarrassingly. Well, I don't really have any control over that, Shiro replied, as Nimue sighed and sat up. I suppose that is true. So, where's Addy and Azul? Shiro asked curiously. They're to the side resting for now. They were watching how you were doing in your trial. When you finished, they went to rest. Nimue shrugged. I see. By the way, what happened to your divinities? Do you not keep them? Nimue asked as Shiro had gone through all the effort to obtain them. Well, I guess not. Plus, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. The Forgotten Realm is one filled with the power of the gods, whereas our world isn't. Plus, the divinities say that I get full control of the section and not the power themselves. But it's fine. I've already got my own divinity of nanobots. Shiro smiled. Fair point. Nimue nodded. Also, you might want to check out that error island. After the trial, it went through a quick change, Nimue said as Shiro turned her head towards the error island, raising her eyebrow. She could see a large tree made from circuits. Approaching the tree, she watched as a few of the circuits reached out around her hand. So you've become a tree now? Shiro chuckled as the circuits seemed to pulse with happiness. Patting it a few times, Shiro looked around for Addy and Azul, finding them sleeping under a tree on Azul's island. Shiro smiled softly and stroked Addy's hair, taking some time to relax while Lyrica and the party wheel her to the inn. Shiro listened to the party talk to each other while she stayed silent for a while. Upon arriving at the inn, they saw Manhwa waiting at the front with a smile on her face. Seems like you girls were successful. She smiled as the party nodded their heads. I think we just need some rest now. Everyone's probably tired from the trial, and well, I'm disabled, so. Shiro chuckled as Manhwa nodded her head. Amen, your rooms have been prepared. I'll hand you the keys now. Passing the keys over to the party, Manhwa left them and allowed the group to recuperate for now. After all, passing the trials must have been rather difficult considering their talents. Making their way to a single room for now, the party sat down. So what trials did everyone complete? Shiro asked as they decided to go clockwise. With Lysandra first, she flexed her fingers as a sigil appeared in the space in front of them. I managed to complete a trial by the primordial god of light ether. The powers I received from him essentially makes me a champion of light. All of my skills have increased damage and ignore most resistances. Plus, I also gained a new form that allows me to impact the battlefield some more. I can't show it since it has a long cooldown, but if we do need it, I can also help by giving everyone buffs. Lysandra smiled as the party nodded their heads. I was worried that you were going to say you could heal everyone, since my role as a healer would be pretty weak. Sylvia sighed as Lysandra wondered if she should say anything else. After a short pause, She opened her mouth. Well, while I don't have healing, my form does grant everyone increased health proportionate to my attack. Lysandra muttered as Sylvia stayed silent. Oh, it's fine, Sylvia. If we can get health boosts, you can relax a bit more and heal at a steady pace. Plus, you can resurrect people, so that is extremely helpful, and none of us can do that. Lyrica persuaded as Sylvia sighed and nodded her head. Anyway, since we're going clockwise, it's my turn. Lyrica smiled. For my trial, a few gods actually came to an agreement to make a mixed trial. Since none of them were primordial, they could merge some of their power. I'm also able to charge forward with increased speed and defense proportionate to my attack, and my attacks have armor shred. They also leave a mark on the enemy that makes the enemy take additional damage from my allies. Like Lysandra, I also got a new form with a rather large cooldown, so I'll show it next time. That's helpful for when I want to snipe people with my gun. Shiro chuckled. MN. It also highlights the target, so they're easy to spot. Lyrica nodded her head. So you too gained a large increase to your attacks. Nice. My bonuses were mostly to do with utility, and I suppose some attack too. The god that chose me was Atlas, but his power was actually repurposed to help me greatly. I essentially have full control over gravity and forces. While it would be a problem of mana, Shiro's recent upgrade to 56 million points into INT have been rather helpful. Aram chuckled. *PFT. Hearing this, the party choked on their saliva and stared at Shiro while Madison only massaged her eyes. What? Shiro asked as the party forced a smile. You have 56 million points into INT now. Sylvia asked with a forced smile. MN, I do. I also got a few upgrades to my title, so my points are worth 3 times as much. Plus, I'm level 300 now. Shiro shrugged. How much mana and health do you have exactly? 1.8 billion health and 9.8 billion mana. Shiro replied, nonchalantly. The fact that you have more health than me is concerning. Madison sighed. Well, you have armor and skills to mitigate a lot of the damage now? I don't have that kind of AR dash. How much defense do you have? Madison asked as Shiro paused for a moment and coughed. 7.8 million points. If it wasn't for my skills that reduce damage by a percentage, I would have given up my tank role by now. Madison forced a smile. Cough, don't worry about it. Shiro laughed. Next is me then. Well, as always, I got a boost to my healing. My healing is more potent the lower health you are. If you die, I can revive you back to full health. I also have some attacks now, and I can convert all of my healing power into a pulse of energy that damages all nearby enemies. And like you girls, I also have a new form. Sylvia smiled as the party raised their eyebrow. With Sylvia's healing prowess, the damage that she can output with this skill was something. That would be on the level of Lyrica and Lysandra. Congrats. The party chuckled as it was now Qinyu's turn. I got access to curses and control over death. Depending on the situation, I'm allowed to instantly kill someone that I strike from the shadows. I don't have a form to transform into as I'm passively in this form. Thankfully, I can choose to dampen the effects. Qinyu smiled as the party was curious, asking him to show the form. He nodded and released his mana. Suddenly, darkness melded into the room as his figure disappeared. In this form, my voice is automatically transferred next to your ear, so people can't pinpoint my location. There are also other benefits such as damage mitigation and reduced tracking. Qinyu said as the party was rather surprised to hear his voice next to their ear. Once the darkness faded, they saw Sylvia sitting with a red face. Are you by chance turned on? Madison asked with a smug sidewards glance. Shut it, Sylvia retorted as Qinyu only chuckled and hugged Sylvia from behind. Take it back to your room. Anyways, it's my turn. I expected to get a boost to my defense, but well, I'm more of a berserker now. My new form allows me to double my defenses and the potency of my skills. However, the key to this is that all of this defense is also stacked onto my attack, so my damage mitigation becomes true damage. Madison said as the party laughed. I think that's the most abnormal out of all of us so far. Where's your normality now? Sylvia laughed. Not so fast. What about you, Shiro? Madison turned to Shiro. Well, I became a demigod.